Gears, by the time Gears 3 comes out, there won't have been a new Gears game on consoles for about 3 years.
Yep.
And in that time, there's been this just rocket trajectory upward for the Call of Duty series, and there have been a couple of Halo games. What are the challenges of reintroducing Gears to the Xbox Live player community after that much time?
A hell of a lot of marketing on the Microsoft half. I think when you're in tech, and we were talking about this earlier, the world moves quickly and the ground shifts quickly underneath your feet. I think the biggest change that we've seen is the rental market's gotten even bigger, the used game market's gotten bigger. You go to Best Buy right now and you see trade in your games, right?
So weird, right?
And but it's money. I mean, this is capitalism. You can't blame them for doing that, right? And there can't be legislation. I mean, there's some stuff that's being worked on, but you can't count on the government to kind of fix that for you.
I just tweeted that you called for legislation against.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
games,
it.
by the way.
And
So
4G, 1,000
what we need to do as creatives is make, and I said this in my lecture, is make gamers marry your game, not just date it. And this is one thing that they knew in Infinity Ward when they were working on the Call of Duty franchise. They're like, we need to, it's not just enough to hop online and have a match with somebody and I had a little bit of fun, which is how it used to be with the Quake and Unreal days, right? Now it's like, oh, I'm online and oh, but you got a little bit of this, you're almost to this level, you want to keep playing and stay on all night. Some of the things that we do in the game, one of the things that I think is amazing is the fact we have this calendar. World of Warcraft had this, a lot of these MMOs have known this for a while, but we shift the game from being this one-off experience to a dungeon mastered experience where we're like, okay, next Tuesday, it's Ticker Tuesday, starts at 8 p.m., you're going to want to be there, don't miss out. And then on the 21st, that's when the big DLC is coming, and it's going to be awesome, and you're going to want to see it, and you can go to this website for this news on it. And so you're sitting there and you're playing the game, and you're like, wow, I'm kind of invested in this, so I probably don't want to trade this in yet because I don't want to miss out on all these cool events that are coming up. Even if you miss it out, you miss this date, you don't even show up for Ticker Tuesdays. It's in your head. It's the gym membership you never use, right? You're kind of dealing with the psychological battle of keeping the disc in the tray and keeping gamers playing your game and not somebody else's. And to be fair, there's an amazing amount of critical mass with the Call of Duty franchise. They've done a stellar job with that. Treyarch stepped up with Black Ops and continued the franchise. And that's one thing we've learned from. We will see the XP bar. We have little tricks we're doing that if you play consecutive matches, you get more XP. If you do executions, you get more XP because that's just the value of a number. It's amazing how much and how important that is for gamers.
Let's circle back to Gears a little bit because I think a lot of what we're talking about here is relevant because Gears is a series that sort of started at a time when games didn't have to be anything but games, right? Like this was right on the cusp when Halo, the Halo series started having books and expanding beyond the universe, and Gears was kind of on the bubble of that, and it kind of felt like a game that that wasn't designed for that. That it was a beautiful game, it was really fun, but you didn't get the sense that there was this larger, more mysterious world out there, at least for me. And as the series has gone on, that's totally flipped, right? Like Gears 2 was far more deep into the world than the first game. The comics started coming out, the books started coming out, and I guess I'm just wondering, when you guys were creating the first Gears of War, was that in your mind, or was it something that you quickly realized we need to do that?
It was there and it was in our mind. I mean, the word that was made everyone want to punch everybody was transmedia, right? It's going to be transmedia franchise. We're going to make the game and the movie and the books at the same time, right? It was the episodic content of its day, which, by the way, is happening now. You look at Borderlands and DLC, that's episodic content. But we deep down knew we wanted it, but the thing is, Gears 1 had such a minimalist storytelling effort because that was all we could get in at the time. And Gears 2 had a bit more, but to be fair, the campaign suffered a little bit from that because I go to that GIF that went around last year that showed FPS design in 1992, 1993, that showed Doom E1M1, and it was kind of porous, cool map, and then FPS design in 2010, and it was line, cutscene, line, cutscene, line, cutscene. And I'm looking at the Prima strategy guide for Gears, the Brady ones or whichever one it was, and I'm looking at the overhead maps and I'm like, damn it, we did that. And I'm like, okay, so what can we do in 3 to get back more towards that? Because Gears 1, when it was at its best, did that whole hourglass gameplay. Totally. Whereas, go out to the bowl, in the courtyard, figure out your way through. If you die, go for the sniper rifle. I died, go for the grenade, go for the boom shot. And 2-player and 4-player co-op now in Gears 3, it's even better that way. So we got back to that kind of bowl as opposed to the hallway, which didn't have any flanking opportunities, so it was frustrating. Back to what you're saying about IP, you need to make a game that's not just a game, it's a world, right? And they say, games are services now, which, as I said, scares me. Just if you make a world that has such a deep fiction that you can create the uber fan that knows that, this Bernie wears fur boots that are made of cats and has a cameo in Gears 3 and is a primary character in the books, you have an Uber fan, you have the person with the tattoo, who then is your evangelist. They're the person who's going out and preaching to the colonists that they need to convert to Gearsism, right? And did we want it with Gears 1? Yeah, we just barely got around to cracking the surface of the story. And now, if you're going to make an IP, you need the Assassin's Creed comic books, you need the Dead Space graphic novels, you need all that stuff. And so you have this collection, and you create the Uber fans, and you create the world in the world as well as outside of it. So you have that.
Yeah, I guess it always felt to me like, I mean, I played a lot of Gears 1, Gears 2, I'm very excited about Gears 3, right? I've read the books and everything. And it always felt to me like you guys were trying to tell a story that you almost couldn't fit in. Like the story was there, you all knew what you wanted to do,
because we didn't want
to
have cutscenes that were more than 4 or 5 minutes tops, ever. Like that was just a pet peeve of mine, is when I play a game and they just go on and on and on. I'm like, and if the cutscenes are good, fine, But Uncharted does a spectacular job of that, right?
I don't think you even need the cutscenes, right? Because like for me, one of my favorite moments in the first Gears game is when you first run into the Stranded, right? Mm-hmm. You're going through that little neighborhood with the lanterns, and here are these people, right, who it seems like there's another world out there, and this is not just a bunch of bros like fighting some monsters.
We weren't even sure if we could do that. That was the thing. The joke was that was RPG Town. Like, hi, mister, can
I get a quest? Yeah.
Can you get my cat out of the tree, right? And if you look at how it was in Gears 1, it was so linear, like, Hall of Presidents, right? Yeah. And we're not at the point where there's parts in Gears 3 that you can go through, and there's people like, hey, what's up, man? And there's people playing ball, and there's like gun ranges and stuff where the Stranded are like practicing shooting, and then you meet Ice-T, hello, which is great. And so we're more and more confident in our ability to do that outside of like just the bare minimum, because I mean, when you do the roller coaster game of experience, you get those moments where it's just the blockbuster, the monster's coming around, he's knocking down the building. You kind of need those moments where you dial it back and you're just walking through and kind of seeing how people live, right? And since everybody's Stranded now in Gears 3, there's a few parts where you visit with Stranded and you see a lot of that ambient storytelling. There's the tent, there's the people hanging out in the corner playing checkers, and those, especially also at the Raven's Nest when you start at the very beginning of the game. If you go around in the Raven's Nest and you look in all the different rooms, you'll see all these unique assets we created that you can kind of piecing together little bits of the story, and that's the better version of storytelling. I love cutscenes. Yeah. Our cutscene director, he's amazing, and he likes to joke. I do the parts of the game that you skip. But to be fair, that's where you get a lot more characterization about characters. When Coltrane shows up in Gears 2 and he's like doing the football play, that's a great moment, right? Laboring over Dom and Maria and all of that, and to be fair, it was something that we weren't able to ramp up and pay enough time and do to what it was. It was like that kind of came out of the blue, and we're getting better at it. But cutscenes serve that purpose. But ambient storytelling is cheaper and often more effective.
Well, it humanizes for one thing, and then I always thought the thing that Halo 1 did really well that, like, honestly probably helped that franchise launch was that by having the Marines and the Grunts have like a persona to them while you're fighting, so you're sort of like building this real world around sort of these side characters who aren't in cutscenes. These are just people who are basically chattering in the middle of combat, and I think it adds an element, because you're talking about a guy in a suit who you never see his face in a story that is ridiculous and slightly borrowed from some other science fiction, but it's like, to me, it's like that's what made Halo memorable. And the sandbox moment.
I guarantee, I don't know what percentage, but a lot of the kids who play Halo and love it don't really know about Ringworld and all that.
Yeah, of course.
They maybe even haven't seen Aliens.
Because they can't read.
The 10-year rule. No, it's well, they're busy reading Harry Potter. No, it's the 10-year rule that I was mentioning.
Yeah.
I actually, my lecture could have applied that to Halo. The fact that the majority of the kids who played Halo probably never played Doom and Quake. So the fact that Master Chief actually looks a little bit like the Doom Marine, they don't even notice, and it's new to them, right? I mean, when I played Halo 1, I was like, okay, so I'm basically crash landing on an alien planet, getting out of my crashed ship, and I'm coming out and seeing a beautiful skybox and a waterfall. I'm like, dude, this feels like Unreal 1, which none of the kids who played Halo played. Dude, whatever, it's fine, right? It's a phenomenon and it works. The thing about Halo that I miss from Halo 1, 2, and 3, that when you have Chief, is that when you're playing these guys in Reach who are cool, but you don't have a lot of those people going, wow, you're even bigger than I thought. Oh my God, you're really Master Chief? And you're like, damn right I am. Right? And that was one of those little things that Bungie did so well that not a lot of games do these days.
I want to ask you too, speaking of like characters in games, like in Gears 3 we have some of the prominent female characters in the series finally making an appearance. Why did it take so long to get some awesome female characters in your games? Because I know that
time and budget. Like I wanted them in the first game, and it just conveniently turned out that, well, first and foremost, we were like, okay, a dispatcher is a useful tool. We saw that, Cortana is useful, and we're like, okay, well, establish cute blonde girl in your ear, as a guy, powerful motivator to get to the next objective. Here, blonde girl at a base primal level, right? From that end, like, it conveniently turned out with the fiction that if humanity's on its last legs, then all the women are going to be birthing, right? They're going to be used as birth farms, and we actually were able to touch upon that in the comic books.
Birth farms confirmed.
Yeah, it's a mini game, right? Where you have to like birth the children.
I thought that was the Gears of War birth farm is the Facebook.
It's going to be the Kinect game.
Birth Farmville?
The Kinect, the Kinect game where you reach and have to feel the dilation and see if the baby's ready.
Hair too
Problem
far.
with that is you don't get feedback on.
It was actually dealt with
the
in
controller vibrates.
bad. It was dealt with fairly well in the comic books and in the actual books, but that's one of those things that, again, with the fiction, I'm not even going to touch that in a game. Like, we're not even going to go like, hey, where's your ex-wife? She's squatting out babies down at Sector 6, right? It doesn't fly, right? So to finally get around to that is actually really cool, because my suspicion, and I don't know why, is like in the grand scheme of shooters, more girls seem to play Gears than a lot of other shooters. I don't know why.
I bet a lot of female Gears players play it online.
You go to the Comic-Con, the girl comes up, she's like, hey, check out my Crimson Omen tattoo. And I'm like, Jesus, you put that on your neck? Like, that's crazy. And so I have this thing, and you know, as bro as people like to joke about Gears is, and as ripped as the guys are in MMA looking, and that's the style, because I'd rather have that than just a forgettable look. The females, it's my personal thing at the studio level is to make sure that the girls in the game, you know, they're cute, but they're, you know, they're not like hookers, and they're not strippers, and they don't have, you know, they don't turn around and go, hey Marcus, want to play with my stick? And I just like see that in games, and my eyes just roll back in my head. I'm like, God. And like when you meet the female gamers at conventions, they're like, oh, I love Gears, you know, I love Bernie as a character. Sure. I hope we're gonna have him represented. If we were to do that ridiculous stripper, I couldn't look him in the eye and like see him at Comic-Con and be like, I'm sorry, right? And if you look at even in Bulletstorm, when you look at Trishka's cute, you know, maybe a little bit slighted boob movement the first time you see her, but overall she kicks ass and she's a cool character and she's tough and hangs with all the guys, right? Just that whole like Dallas era, like, you know, heavy metal Fact 2 thing, I'm just done, and it's not going to happen.
Well, was that a conscious? I mean, so we had Josh Ortega was the writer on the last game. Switch it up to Karen Travis for Gears of War 3, who's also written, you know, in the Gears universe novels. Was that a conscious decision to say, hey, we want to bring somebody in here who we think can really write some seriously awesome female characters? Or was it just about her writing?
It wasn't about the female characters as far as finding the writer. It was just finding the right writer. Yeah. But the funny thing is with the perception of Gears being such a bro, yo, dude shooter, 2 of the 3 writers we've had working on the series are female.